Before I get into all the unique topics that I have on comic books today, I want to first of all give a nice shout out to a good friend of mine and his first personal album that is now out on Soundcloud called the Splice. Yeah, that's a freaking cool name for an album. His Soundcloud name for now is BuzzedLightyear, and this album is a personal passion project experiment from him with different type of style of music and sound all in one little playlist. It's mainly an inspired retro jazz, but it has a little R&B, gospel and ambience all mixed inside of it. The album has 8 original experimental sound waves, 2 interludes, 1 intro and an outro. It's a complete structured album to enjoy, especially if you're really big on jazz. I'm gonna give you guys 2 samples of the album. The first is Sunrise, which is the most played in his platform. And then this is my personal favorite from the album, which is called Back to Basics. If you like what you heard from those 2 samples, then please give the rest of the album a chance. I promise you won't regret it. The background music that you're also currently hearing right now is also another song from his album. So if you honestly think about it, I gave you guys 3 samples from the album. This person I'm telling you of is a really good friend of mine, and he's an active supporter of this channel. He tries to help me out at any chance that I get, so I'm trying to do this exact same for him by continuously recommending his projects. So I hope that most of you guys that check out this video and like my channel eventually check out his album, and hopefully you guys get to enjoy it. It helps him out a lot, and it gives you guys another great collection of jazz music to enjoy. So thank you so much if you do. Once again, his name for now is BuzzedLightyear, and the album is the Splice Cuts, and you can find all of this either on SoundCloud if you have the app, or you can click the link down in the description below. Thank you. So some of the news and videos that are going around a lot these days is that modern comic books really suck, especially the ones from Marvel and DC, the 2 big comic studios. Basically, the main rants that I keep hearing from content creators is that the new and recent comic writers are not interested in telling a compelling story, but are only interested in writing on what can get them easy headlines. The drawings and colors of the comic book might look cool and awesome because it's done by a different person, but the actual writing of the story and what the writer is trying to say is flat out awful. They are choosing to put identity, sexuality and representation over natural compelling storytelling. Writers these days are not interested in character growth and character development, but are now mainly interested in character labeling. Because of this, readers are slowly losing interest in modern comic books and believe that the good days of masterpiece writing is long gone from us. At least that's what I keep hearing. So as someone who is still reading comics to this day, both old and new, I can see where some of the rants are coming from. However, I personally do not agree with everything they are trying to say. Like currently, a lot of readers are giving Tom Taylor a really hard time because of how he's writing Superman's Son of Hell. People now think that Tom Taylor is one of the worst writers of our modern era because of this book. Now personally, I've always had a personal problem with how Tom Taylor writes comics ever since I read Injustice and currently reading Dark Knights of Steel. I personally think most of his books, from my own reading experience, are kind of mediocre at best. But still, I don't think it's fair to judge Tom Taylor in that manner, because while you're right about his Superman book, you can't really say the same for the other books, like his entire Deceased storyline and his Nightwing storyline. Because those books, if you haven't read them, are actually really freaking good. So while I do agree that Tom Taylor's Superman book is really bad, I don't think that Tom Taylor is a bad writer. He just had the wrong character. The same also goes to writers of our modern era. I personally think that a lot of them are great writers, they just don't have the right characters that connects with them. So in this video, I'm going to pretend that I'm a genius and try to give some of our modern comic writers the characters that I think are suited for them. I say pretend to be a genius because I myself isn't really sure on what I'm making here. Take all the things that I say here with a pinch of salt, alright? This video mostly focuses on writers of our modern era and is mostly talking on DC characters with just one exception. It has no focus on Marvel for now, but I might one day make a list for them as well. So the number 10 on my list is taking the character of Harley Quinn and giving it to the writer of Gail Simone and artist Terry Dixon. Now, I know some of you guys are instantly raising your side eye towards me, but hear me out for a few minutes. Harley Quinn is in desperate need of a really good story that doesn't always have her being constantly quirky or painfully annoying. For a character that is currently considered as the fourth pillar of the DC universe, it's kind of a shame that all people think of her is the character that inspired Jinx and is a girlfriend to Poison Ivy. If you ask me personally, other than her live action movies and animated series, Harley doesn't really have a tangible factor of what really makes her an interesting character. Especially in the comic books, Harley, in my opinion, is in desperate need of exploration of her life and her psyche, and it looks like as if the recent writers or previous writers are way too scared to tap on this aspect of her character. The last really good Harley Quinn story I read was Black Label's Harleen, and that was a story that was just focused on exploring her origin and not necessarily trying to expand her life. She needs a writer that is an expert of putting character first over anything, and not just re-expanding on her origin story over and over again. And to me, I feel like Gail Simone is the right person for the job. The reason I personally picked Gail Simone is because of her past writing experiences and overall impact on DC's female superheroes. Her run on stories like Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman and Batgirl really proves to me that Gail will not only explore Harley's origin or the constant obsession with the Joker, but is also going to be able to write an ongoing series about the character. I know some of you guys think Gail Simone isn't that good of a writer, but personally, I would like to disagree with you. To me, she's a comic book legend because of the stories she's written. Her stories have gone on to inspire not just future comic books, but also media as well. Apart from the Birds of Prey movie that takes a few inspirations from her stories, the Justice League Unlimited series also takes inspirations from her in the Grudge Match episode, where Huntress and Black Canary were main characters. And she also wrote the Double Date episode in the series as well. All this has been able to convince me that she is the right person, in my opinion, to take on a character like Harley Quinn and give her some very much needed depth and context. I'm not asking for Gail to completely change Harley. I just want her to do what she has always done best, like she did with her previous characters, and that's focusing on their struggles. I want Gail to write a 12 to 24 issue story on Harley's struggles as a mental character, who has a girlfriend in Poison Ivy and smiles every day, but secretly goes through the struggles of her identity, her obsession, her past relationships, and her mental instability. And I want Terry Dixon to be the artist because I always feel like Terry and Gail are like the tag team equivalent of SNYDER and Capullo, or Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly. It's just a personal thing, but anytime I see Terry Dixon's art, I always think that it's Gail Simone that is writing the story because of the past stories that I have read. But yeah, I personally want it to be Gail because I think she'll be able to reinvent Harley Quinn for the better. The number 9 on my list is making the Justice League iconic once more by giving them a genius writer like Jonathan Hickman with Pepe Larraz as the artist. This one I don't really have much to say other than the fact that I want DC to steal Hickman from Marvel so he can make me excited to pick up an ongoing Justice League series again. Hickman has written so much awesome storytelling on the side of Marvel, and I need his brilliant mind to come on DC and give me a worthy Justice League vs Darkseid story. As for why I chose Larraz, well, his art on Hickman's X-Men's run just made me picture him drawing the Justice League, and I want him to work with Jonathan Hickman on the story. So a great team up with Jonathan Hickman and Pepe Larraz on a good Justice League story that has a beginning and an end without getting cancelled would be the next great team for the team and for DC as a whole. The number 8 on my list is giving Green Arrow a very solid run by making Tom Taylor as the writer and Trevor Hessine as the artist. Now I know I'm not the biggest Tom Taylor fan, however I cannot overlook the potential that this has if it actually ends up happening. Personally, I don't hate Tom Taylor. I honestly think that he might be one of the coolest writers in person. It's just sometimes he gets a little too biased in his stories. Like, come on, look at the epic story he's currently writing in his final deceased storyline. And look at how driven his Nightwing stories are. And then this is the only idea he has for John Kent. If you ask me personally, I think giving Tom Taylor anything Superman related will always be a great recipe for disaster. Simply because I don't think he understands the character and the people related to him. That's why, apart from his genius writing on his deceased trilogy, I don't like a lot of the other stories that he's written, especially on Injustice and Dark Knights of Steel. However, his writing on Green Arrow's character has been so good to see, even in comics that I don't even like. So if Tom Taylor ever has an opportunity to write like a 12 to 15 issue series on the character, I really think it would be outstanding. And as for Trevor Hessein on art, well, he's currently doing a great job on Tom Taylor's last run on Deceased. I think when that's all said and done, they can both easily make a smooth transition from Deceased to Green Arrow if it finally gets a green light from DC. The number 7 on my list is a horror Zatanna book under the hands of writer James Tyrion and artist Alvaro Martinez Bueno. James Tyrion, to me, is up there as one of the most underrated comic book writers of all time. For the people that keep saying modern comic book is terrible now, I highly advise them to pick up some of the stories that James Tyrion has written, especially on the supernatural sides of comic books. And to me, there is no better writer right now to pump up some good magical blood in Zatanna's veins. I wouldn't even mind if the book was under the Black Label category. Zatanna desperately needs good stories around her name, because the last time it happened, it was really under the Justice League Dark run. So far, there's only mainly been 3 books on Zatanna that you can consider good, but I want more from her character and a really deep dive into her backstory and her relationship with her father. And I think that James' writing and Alvaro's artwork will be up for the job. James has given a great Justice League Dark run. He's also given a great John Constantine story, so I hope he completes it by giving me an incredible Zatanna story. The number 6 on my list is an epic Green Lantern sci-fi story in the hands of Philip Kennedy Johnson as writer and Jim Cheung as the artist. There's not much for me to say here other than the recent epic Superman sci-fi story was masterfully written by Kennedy Johnson, and that's enough to show me that he handles sci-fi concepts in DC Comics really well. And I would like him to do the exact same thing for the Green Lanterns, and maybe try to make another epic Green Lantern trilogy outside of Jeff Johns' version. I want every current member of the Corps, both old and new, to have something interesting going on in the story, with Hal Jordan as the centerpiece in the midst of all the storytelling. And I want amazing artist Jim Cheung to draw and illustrate every wild and engaging concept that Philip Kennedy Johnson has to offer. The number 5 on my list is a deep, slow, and mind-provoking comic series on Superman Fast Age son, Jonathan Kent, with one of the ultimate comic duos in Tom King and Miss Gerard tasked as the writer and artist for the book. Now, this one a lot of people might not agree with me on, mainly because I chose Tom King to be the writer. Some people think that Tom King is thinking too high of himself, that his work makes it look like he's trying to compare himself with other iconic comic book writers. People don't like his writing style because it's a bit confusing and some might say a bit pretentious. As for me personally, Tom King has given me some of the best stories that I've ever read in the modern era. His brilliant work on Mr. Miracle is highly recommended from me to anyone who has yet to read it. Him and his partner in crime really did something special with the character. And not too far enough, he has also given me really solid Superman related stories in Up in the Sky and Woman of Tomorrow. And I want his genius mind on John Kent as well. I want him to flesh out grown-up John Kent and show us the readers what secretly makes him interesting. Tom King has said that when he writes for DC, he's not looking for a character that he wants to write. He is looking for some character that desperately needs some attention. A character that he can try to help by telling good, memorable stories around them. And in my opinion, there's no better character right now in need of some help than John Kent. And I can't think of a better team than Tom King and Mitch Gerard to breathe some life into him. The number 4 on my list is an interesting supernatural adventures of John Constantine under the controls of writer Ram V and artist David Finch. Ram V is another underrated comic writer that harshly tells his stories through raw and engaging horror, like he expertly did on his Swamp Thing run. Ram V knows where his expertise of writing lies. In an interview, he said he didn't grow up reading main DC and Marvel storylines, but instead chose to read the darker storylines from DC's underground works in Vertigo. And that's what mainly explains why his horror stories are highly praised. So now that he's finished his story on Swamp Thing, I want his next story to be on John Constantine and to take the character on a supernatural journey that has never been done before. And I want the gritty details of David Finch artwork to perfectly draw and outline the madness that Ram V has for the character. The number 3 on my list is a metal raw action-packed storyline on Wonder Woman by writer Donny Cates and artist Brett Booth. It might seem strange and weird to take the edgy writing elements of Donny Cates and apply it to Diana, but if you ask me, it's perfect recipe for great storytelling. Donny Cates is a writer who has no shame for admitting his love for edgy metal looking characters. But the thing with Donny Cates is that he has the right kind of edge. Donny Cates to me is a genius writer because he knows how to capture the edgy image vibes of the 90s but mix it in with a nice balance of subtle storytelling and great character development. Donny Cates have logic to the violence he has in his stories, and I like that about it. With his style of writing, he's been able to restore Thor back to his epic glorious state, and his Venom comic trilogy, in my opinion, is one of the coolest trilogy I've read in a recent time. He managed to give Eddie Brock very strong character traits while adding and exploring the secret concepts of the symbiotes in the Marvel Universe. Now that it looks like DC have signed him over, at least according to some rumors, I would really love it if he also applied his metal madness to a Wonder Woman book. If DC wants to play it safe, they can just easily put the story on the Black Label category. But I do think that Donny Cates on a Wonder Woman story would be very interesting to see. Give me a Diana that has a lasso on the right hand and chains on the left hand, and make her go to war. And with Brett Booth as the artist, this book will be one of the most ambitious books that DC has ever published. The number 2 on my list is fresh Superman storytelling under the hands of Daniel Warren Johnson as writer and Ryan Stegman as artist. I also don't have much to say on this one, other than it would be a perfect match made in heaven. All of Daniel's books that I have read are all masterpieces of storytelling. He's literally never written a bad comic book. So him getting a 35 to 50 issue series on a Superman story and maybe a 20 to 25 issue series on an action comic stories would just be non-stop good writing for Superman. In fact, I want him to have his own timeless Superman trilogy like Jeff Johns, Tom Taylor and Donny Cates have with Green Lantern, Deceased and Venom. I even think it will be better than those 3 if he has his hands on Superman. My only personal little issue from him is that sometimes he draws the main characters like they're still in their teenage years, and sometimes it can be a bit distracting to see while reading his stories. Don't get me wrong, I really love his artwork and his real attention to detail. And if he did get a Superman story where he had to both write and draw the book, I wouldn't complain about it. He even already did it a little bit in Superman Red and Blue, where he wrote and drew one issue, and it was honestly the best issue of the whole book. But with a contract from DC on an ongoing series for a single character with continuous storytelling, I think it would be best if he worked with other artists as well. That's why my pick for the artist that he should collaborate with on his Superman story, if he actually gets one, is none other than Ryan Stegman. Ryan Stegman's artwork is absolutely incredible, and I think that a collaboration with Daniel on a Superman run would just make it a lot better. Another artist that I would like to mention for Daniel is Ryan Utley. He is the artist that is mainly popular for doing the comic series on Invincible, and he did a really good job there capturing both the gritty and the hyper aspects of a superhero comic book. And yes, I do realize that I'm recommending 2 comic artists with their first name starting with Ryan on a Superman book. But after you see their works on the Venom run and the Invincible run, it becomes really apparent that these 2 artists will be great choices for a Superman book. But yeah, it doesn't really matter who the artist is. If Daniel just gets the book and he's willing to write an ongoing Superman story, I wouldn't complain at all. If he wants to be both the writer and the artist for the book because he knows that he can pull off some of the emotional aspects of the story that he's trying to tell, then who am I to complain? I'm all in for it. The goal here is to just get Daniel on a Superman story. And if that happens, I personally think that it will be some of the most memorable Superman books we will ever have the pleasure to see for years to come. However, there is one book that tops every one I have on this list. First of all, a couple honorable mentions. Joelle Jones is an incredible artist and writer, and I think a shot of her on a Black Canary comic series would be really cool. If you haven't read The Lady Killer to understand what I'm saying, I really advise that you do. It's a really fun 90s vibe female assassin book that you shouldn't take seriously, but for me it's checked all the marks for a Black Canary comic book. The only requirement that I want from Joelle is to take the character of Black Canary a little bit seriously. But I think her writing or drawing a Black Canary solo series would be amazing to read and see. Next is wanting Mark Waid and Dan Mora to easily tell a cool mystery standalone reporter detective story on Lois Lane. I want them to make it an intense thriller adventure of what Lois Lane was doing when Superman was in War World. And the last honorable mention is hoping that once Chip Zdarsky's run on Batman is over, I would really want him to tell a really good Batman Beyond story. I want a really interesting manipulation story between Terry and Blight, and there's no other writer in my opinion that can do this right other than Chip Zdarsky. My suggestion for the art to capture the story will have to be Robbie Rodriguez. He drew a couple issues on Tom Taylor's Nightwing run, and I would like to see him get a full dedication with Chip Zdarsky on a Batman Beyond run. And I know I didn't say anything on Batman on this video, but that's simply because he already has 3 exciting books on the menu for DC, so I didn't feel like there's a need to talk about him. So, the number one comic book that I really want to see is Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Insanity on a Spawn comic run. A book like this getting announced for Image with the hands of Scott Snyder will easily be one of the best stories of the next decade. Scott Snyder, in my opinion, will go down as one of the best writers of our modern era. Thanks to the run that he's had on DC, from Batman all the way to his Justice League run and his Metal Crisis events, Scott Snyder to me will go down as one of the best writers of our modern era. And if it's not enough, he's currently on a break from DC right now, not to actually take a break from writing, but to help out other independent comic studios like Comixology and Image with his new ideas that he felt he wouldn't be able to express on DC. So even right now, Scott Snyder is still on fire with the books that he's currently writing. And now that he's currently working on Image with his stories on Nocterra, it will be the perfect time for him to set his sights on the character of Spawn and bring back his old friend Greg Capullo to collaborate with him on it. It's honestly really shocking to me personally that Scott Snyder took a break from DC to help out Image, and he didn't instantly pick up Spawn as the first character that he was going to write, especially when his partner in crime is recognized as the best Spawn artist in all of comics. My personal reason for saying this is because of his run, especially on Batman. His run to a lot of people had arguably the scariest Joker, wrote arguably the best modern Batman story, and introduced a whole new darker villain altogether, not just for Batman, but for DC as a whole. So if Scott agrees on a Spawn story with more freedom from Image than he got with DC, it's very much expected that he will introduce new layers, new context, new mysteries, new backstories, and new villains to the character and his universe. And with Greg Capullo on art, it will be the most talked about series in the next few years to come. And with a movie on Spawn being currently talked about and negotiated with, there's absolutely no better time than now to get Scott Snyder to help boost up the character. So this is my list. These are my top 10 lists of the writers that need to be writing on these characters. In my opinion, despite maybe not liking some of their stories, I don't really think that there's a bad writer. They just have the wrong characters. Or maybe they actually have the right characters but are writing them at the wrong time. But that doesn't also mean that we instantly jump to the worst and quickly say that comics are dying. It just means that maybe the writers just need a whole new different character. This type of topic discussion is a very subjective topic. Again, like I said earlier in my video, I could be very wrong with these writers. Maybe Snyder does like Spawn and wants to write on him, but thinks that the story he's trying to tell won't actually fit the character. And the same also goes for my weird collaboration of Ryan Stegman and Daniel Warren Johnson, or Donny Cates having a run on Wonder Woman. However, it's not going to stop me from asking for it. and it shouldn't stop you too. So comment down below your top 5, top 10, or maybe even top 20 writers if you have that list, and tell me the characters that you hope for them to write. I would also love to know what you think about my list and which one you agree or disagree with the most. With not much else to say, have a great day and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.